Susan Sheehan, and welcome to Susan Sheehan's Success Series, where you're going to be inspired, informed, so you can escape the ordinary. It is my pleasure to have with me today Praveena You're going to have to pronounce your name. I like to get names right, and my brain just stopped. So her name is Praveena, and she is a high-performance yoga therapist, but I do like to get names right. So can you please share your full name with us?
Absolutely, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. And my full name is Praveena Lakshmidurai.
And
thank you.
it's important to get it correct. So thank you, thank you. So Praveena is with us today. We're going to talk about the value that yoga therapy can bring to an individual, that could be you, that really is a high performer. You want to get the best out of yourself. You want to be the best in your world. You want to get the best results. You're an individual that plays the game to win. We are going to be talking about menopause and how yoga therapy can fit into the whole menopause box. But right now, how did you get into yoga therapy? What is a little bit of your story, Praveena?
Oh, thank you, Susan, for that beautiful introduction. And I really do appreciate the effort that you put into getting my name right. I know it's not easy, but yeah, it just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Thank you. Well, I think it's a person's name is important.
Yes. Yeah, and my name includes the goddess of knowledge and wealth, so I've got a big name to live into. And
I remember you saying that. That's right. So there's the extra importance for getting it correct. Yes, it is a big name to step into, but you are kicking some goals with that. So, tell us a little bit about how you got into yoga therapy.
I never saw it coming, to be honest. So my first job ever got into a career of dentistry. So I did some hard yards of study for over 5 to 7 years and started my career as a dentist. And, I'm brought up in a typical Indian family where almost everyone is encouraged to be a doctor or engineer. So I'm sure you already guessed what my sister is. Yes, she is an engineer.
Well, if you've got two sisters, there'll be a doctor and an engineer. But which one is she?
She's the engineer. I'm the doctor.
Oh, okay. So you're a doctor of dentistry.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. And so yoga therapy from being a doctor of dentistry, it's quite a shift in career choice, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I think everything really shifted for me in 2020 when COVID happened, because it was a few years before that. From 2017, that is 1 year of my life I will never forget. And if there was a thing called rock bottom, that was it for me. Everything just fell apart. Nothing was going the way I wanted to. My physical health took a toll. My mental health took a toll. And, there's only so much that family and friends can support you with. And I've always had that, I take responsibility for everything. And so I knew I had to do something about it. And I just started reflecting back to see, when was the times when I was really happy? And all the childhood memories and even my adult memories of doing yoga with my family, just came up for me. And yoga wasn't actually something we do. Yoga is a lifestyle. It's a way of being. And so, being here in Brisbane, Australia, I went to a yoga class at a gym, did not do it for me. You could hear all the weights clanging, and I'm like, nah, this is not yoga. This is not the yoga that I know and I've grown up with. And so I actually enrolled myself into a yoga teacher training, not with the intention to teach, but it was more so the intention of deepening my own yoga practice. So went on, did a few of those, and it really helped me. And leading up to 2020, that's when things really changed for me. So, when I was actually the top mental health, physical health during COVID, surprisingly. And, people started noticing. So it started with friends and family, and then strangers started approaching me. getting into yoga and doing yoga therapy, helping people out. And I was doing all of this one-on-one. I just preferred the smaller, intimate. And even if we were groups, it was a maximum of 3 to 5 people in the group, because I do think that yoga is a very personal practice. And therefore, it's something that, you really need to help people reflect upon this whole journey. And that is how I got into yoga therapy, to the point where everything else in my career is now secondary, and yoga therapy is my full-time gig at the moment.
Yeah, well, at the moment, yoga therapy is your full-time gig that you're going to grow and expand and become recognized as the best. It's an interesting journey, isn't it? Yeah, no, there's no fingers crossed. You just got to see it, believe it, and just get out there and make it happen. It's all
You
part
hit the nail on the head.
And it's like, I liken it, academics that move into the world of being an entrepreneur are it's a very interesting transition. And you know what, when you're sitting your exams and when you're doing your thesis and you're going for your doctorate, you see what you're working towards, and you just do whatever it takes to achieve that, right?
Exactly. It's
There's
like a
no
little
there's no
box.
second guessing. You're in
No.
that tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel is that certificate to say that you are now a doctor of dentistry. That's all you saw. And being an entrepreneur is just like that. That's exactly what it's like. So that's an interesting piece of the conversation. So how are you finding that transition then? Because it is a big transition as far as mindset and how you function on a day-to-day on your day-to-day routines. How are you finding it?
I'm loving it.
Yeah, cool.
I think, being an entrepreneur, sometimes you're forced to think outside the box, whereas, university and having to stick with the regulations sort of does put you in a box if you look at it, because
Yes.
there's only certain ways that you can practice, and, there's very strict guidelines. Whereas when the world is your oyster, it's like, being in the entrepreneur world, I feel like the expansion, it's like there's not just one way to do this. There's so many different ways. And I'm just loving that creativity, because I think that creativity, really tuning into the sacral chakra, was one thing that I was actually missing when I was, in the field of dentistry, or even when I was in management, managing dentists and physios, like high stress environment. There, we're using more of the solar plexus chakra, that determination, that focus, that grit. And I think it was just nice to just be able to engage a lot more of my energy centers, rather than just being focused in that one area of achievement. Because the interesting thing about yoga is that it is not a performance. It is not a performance. And, it's quite an oxymoron that I call myself a high performance yoga therapist, because they're not meant to go together, but in a way they do, because
And
it's
you know
a
what? And in a way they must. Because
exactly
in a way they must, because to be a high performer, or to play the game to win, whatever road that is for you, you have to know that you're functioning in balance, because ultimate health and happiness is working with the body in balance, isn't it?
100%. That's exactly right. Yeah. And, the goal of yoga, they say, is to get rid of the ego. Because it's only when you lose the ego that you go into this ultimate goal of yoga, which is the eighth limb of yoga, that's called the samadhi, nirvana, bliss, whatever you want to call it. But you can't get to that point until you've really connected with your ego. So,
So, okay. So how would you define ego? Because that's a big word with a lot of different
ooh,
meanings, right? It's a little
yeah,
word with a lot of big meanings.
it certainly is. And, I don't think that answer can be, I mean, that question can be answered in a very simple
Yes.
way, because even if you go to Google, Chat GPT, or whatever source you're referring to, you've just asked me the hardest question in the world, which is,
Yes.
who are you?
Yes. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just and to I think that's the big question that more people need to ask themselves. And then the second part of that question is to be honest in the answer.
Exactly right. And I think dropping into honesty in the answer is
Yeah,
the key to identifying what
yeah.
your ego is, or even your identity. You know, identity is something that's very fluid. The identity that I had as a 20-year-old is completely different to the identity I have now as a 40-year-old.
Oh my gosh, and it just I guess that's what developing self and evolving is, isn't it? And we're once living a wealthy life, and to us, the wealthy life is, living all parts of your life together as one. It used to be for a very few, but now we can show people how to do it.
Yes.
More
Yeah.
people have the opportunity to change, to reset, rewire their brain, change their life. And, I know that exercise is a big part and up there. Well, health and wellness is one of my highest values. So looking after the physical body is as important to me as looking after my mental well-being. And I know that even though I'm not a yoga person, I'm a New York trained Pilates, but I also like to just be still at times. I have my own plan. I certainly respect what you do and the value that it brings to people. So let's talk about then what is yoga therapy? What does that mean? If somebody says I'm going to yoga therapy, what are they coming for? What are you going to help them with?
Beautiful question. So, yoga therapy is actually a modern day term. So, like I said, yoga, it used to be for everyone. And now there is another term which I've recently qualified in. It's a sheet of paper that says I'm a trauma-informed yoga therapist. And, I think we're very trauma aware these days.
Yes,
And there is a lot of meaning behind those words because I know, Susan, you just said that you're not a yoga person, but can I ask you a simple question?
sure, sure.
Do you love to move?
Yes.
Do you stay in touch with your breathing? Are you sometimes aware of your breath?
Always. Well, always. When I'm not like crazy mad business mode, definitely.
Perfect. And the third question is, do you sometimes observe your mind and are you aware of your mindset?
Always. That is a some days a moment by moment awareness.
Well, there you go. You're practicing yoga without even realizing it. It's just a
There
way
you
of
go.
life for you.
Okay, so it's just a label.
The three-part formula, movement,
Yeah,
breath, and meditation or mind
yeah.
awareness. That's
Okay.
all yoga is. And the reason why, I've sort of off do give my offerings as a sort of therapy is because yoga recognizes that the self, the ego, is not just this physical body. There's more than just this physical body here. So if we're going to the gym, really, moving, doing some heavy weights, doing some cardio, running, focusing on the physical body.
Yes.
Yoga adds a lot more layers to it. So I'm going to tell you something that will blow your mind. As I know, I get all kinds of shocked expressions when when I see people, as soon as I've told them the basis of yoga. So in the Vedic knowledge, if you're doing yoga the proper way, we need to understand just one thing. And this is a huge concept. So when I say I, which is my ego or my sense of self, every single human being has 7 bodies.
Okay. You've got my 100% attention.
Love it. That was exactly the face I was waiting for. So the physical body, we're all aware of it. We know how to look out
Yeah.
for it. We know how to perform our physical hygiene, take a shower, use your deodorant. Most of us do that every day.
Yeah.
Then there's different layers. So when I say bodies, it means different dimensions to our being. So, we're multi-dimensional beings as a human being. We're not called human doings. We're not meant to be always go do, 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 do. We're human beings. We're meant to just be.
Yes.
That's exactly what's in our name. And so the second body is then our emotions body. So this is why yoga works as a therapy on a metaphysical level, because there's something that surrounds us energetically where in our body there are trapped emotions if we don't process this. And these emotions, they're generally formed and they reside in our body between the ages of 7 to 14. So science is catching up to spirituality slowly. All of this knowledge has been around through yoga
Yes,
for 3,000 years, and they're just being
yes.
proved one by one now. So, if you hold on to certain emotions, now that can be from when you were 7 years old, or it could be from something that happened 2 days ago. But unless you're aware of what's going on in your body, and I think Bessel van den Kolk, who wrote the book The Body Keeps Score, explained this beautifully, how emotions are trapped in our body. So yoga, through movement, breath awareness, and meditation, helps you process these and release these what's called the sankharas, because the more you release these emotions that no longer serve you and is trapped in your body, automatically that back pain that you had for 2 years is gone.
Yeah, that I find that quite fascinating, and it can work the opposite. Let me tell you a quick story and you might be able to give me greater clarity on it. My uncle died, my mother's only brother died 3 months ago.
I'm
My,
sorry to
my,
hear.
my mother's 89 and Uncle Mervyn was 90. So, he lived a good life. Mum was, in hindsight, we needed to have a high chair, a wheelchair, wheelchair for her. And normally, she's got some arthritis, but she walks okay. On the day of the funeral, we almost had to carry her. The pain was wrapped through her body. And the next day, she didn't cry. She didn't cry at the funeral at all, except her pain was very real. The next day she woke up pain-free.
There you go. It takes time to process. And that is so beautiful what you've explained. Like she's been able to process that so quick because she must have addressed it, in her own private space.
Yes.
Some
Okay.
people take years. Yeah.
So that's what you think that she did. She was actually, wow, okay, then that is powerful. I just think that's a good example, because, a lot of people can get quite confused with this. But it was fascinating watching her. And then, of course, as I said, the next day she was pain-free. Well, as pain-free as what she could be. So I find that all very interesting, how we can manifest pain with our emotions, but then we can release the emotion as well through pain and through other ways. And is that what yoga therapy helps you do?
You've nailed it. That's exactly right. Yeah. And I think that is a beautiful example.
And do you have to, do you have to know what it is? I mean, because I know, a lot of pain and crap, I call it pain and crap, problems, anxiety, internal conflict, negative belief, criticism, resistance, apprehension, procrastination. A lot of pain and crap can be stuck there and you don't know what it is, right?
You don't have to know what it is.
So you don't
That's
have
the
to know what
beauty
it
of
is.
yoga.
Okay.
So, yoga is very different from the work that psychologists do because they look at the problem and, you're ruminating on that over and over. With yoga, we don't discuss any of your problems. It's a more somatic release from the body through these multiple bodies.
Okay. So then in a lot of cases, for some people, it's less confronting.
Exactly right. And that's why we say yoga is for everybody.
I never thought of that before. That's powerful because
Mm.
a lot of people will not talk about what's going on or how they feel because it can be confrontational, can't it be? Because they've got to be mindful of what's coming up. They've got to accept what's coming up. They've got to discuss what's coming up. If you're talking to another person, it's a conversation. But you're saying in yoga, you can just go in, feel heavy, because I think sometimes I know that I've had, I've spoken to people about this. You go into it feeling heavy, not really understanding that that's how you feel, but you feel lighter when you come out. So you've acknowledged that what you felt when you went in was sort of like this heaviness because now you don't have it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've described exactly what the yoga glow is, the post-yoga glow.
Okay, the post yoga glow. So what do you think then your uniqueness is? What is your unique your yoga therapy for high performance. What is your uniqueness? What do you do that's just unique to you?
I think what is really unique is I have quite a deep understanding of yoga philosophy. So there's two books that are considered as the yoga Bible. So there's the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and then there's the Bhagavad Gita. So these were both written over 3,000 years
And are
ago.
they like this thick?
Yeah, they're pretty big.
I think I have one. I think I have one of them.
There you go. They are quite popular. The hardest part is Sanskrit, which is the language that they're originally written in, was meant to be a spoken language.
Okay.
So if you look at one translation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, for example, one paragraph might have a completely different translation when someone else does it. So it's not just as simple as picking up the book and reading it. No, you've got to really absorb it, assimilate it, process it, and really work it out. And I think that's what makes me unique, because I have been doing this ever since I was a child, very actively. And the fact that I've been able to absorb all that knowledge and turn it into wisdom through my lived experience, implementing yoga in everyday life, is, I think, what makes me quite unique, because I've got one foot in the modern world where I'm very high tech, I keep up with everything. I know exactly what's going on in the tech world, social world. I'm very realistic, very practical, but at the same time, I'm very grounded in my roots, all that beautiful, ancient wisdom. And I think the fact that I'm marrying them both is what has been able to get me results, not just for myself, but for all my clients as well.
And you would also have a good sort of medical knowledge of the human body.
Exactly right. Back
Is,
in the day when I studied dentistry, we had to dissect and cut open real human cadavers. So this
yes,
is what
yes,
I have done so I have a very in-depth
yes.
knowledge of that. And, I think that healing is really, doctors are there just to treat the symptoms. But if you practice this healing of yourself, this inner work that you do on yourself, you would have, to be honest, I can't even remember the last time I took anything as small as Panadol. Like this physical body has had zero medication for years and years.
Yes,
And
yes,
I can't
yes.
even remember the last time I've been to the doctors, other than just to get my usual annual blood tests and all of that. So, I do like to consider myself as walking the talk, and I don't teach anything that I've not done and implemented myself. And I do admit I have gone through a phase of depression, clinically diagnosed depression, where I had to go on medication. This was in 2017, that lowest point in my life that I was telling you about. I got myself out of medication within a month and never had to go back to anything, because yoga gives you a dose. It's a dose. It gives you the full happy hormones.
Yeah, congratulations. That's wonderful. Oh, well, I'm a medication-free body as well. I believe that for every diagnosis, there's 40 ways that we can heal our body naturally. I'm an advocate, I am a shouted from the rooftops, learn to know yourself and your body, listen to your body, and then be curious and ask people questions and find out what your body needs so that it doesn't have to be medicated. I think that then that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because it is such a significant piece of the wellness formula for a lot of people. I know when I was working, I was one of the managers in a five-star complex here, and I was manager of all of the trainers and the coaches and the physical activities, and I used to find great yoga teachers. I wasn't interested in employing somebody who had done a yoga weekend. I wanted somebody who truly understood the yoga principles, so that we were able to offer what yoga truly was about, not just from the outside in, but from the inside out. And so I remember, I think I shared this with you, but I think it's something that we can share for people to hear, is that my nickname was Muscles. So I I was very lean and in shape. And one of the guys in the gym said, Wait, Susie, and I can't remember her name. Anyway, let's call her Mary. Let's have a competition and see who's the strongest. And Mary was the yoga teacher, and she was only a little lady. I'm only 5'2.5", but I had muscles. She was very lean looking. Okay, she didn't have any muscles that one could see, where I had muscles popping. And so we set it up. We're in the gym. She sits down, her legs extended. She brings her hands down to her side, back nice and straight, beautiful posture, and she lifts her body up. I couldn't get my bum off the floor.
Different kind of yoga strength.
I did everything I could to get my bum off the floor, but my bum did not lift off the floor. That was my first awareness of the power of that inner strength that yoga has. That it isn't, and such a perfect example of strength may be seen from the outside, but true strength starts from inside. And I think that's one of the X factors of yoga.
Exactly right, because there's all these other bodies, which is your spiritual core. That's one of the bodies. So, if you're not connected with whether you call the higher version of yourself or God or whatever you believe in, you'll never have that fulfillment. It's like you see success defined by what fancy car you have, big home, they've hit the high points in their careers, but they still feel like they lack something. It's because that they're not connected with that spiritual body of theirs.
Yes, and that's why high performance yoga therapy is necessary within the world of big business.
And exactly right. That's exactly the kind of clientele I work with. So, I think it's that people in the corporate, all the leaders, people who are making big decisions that impact thousands of lives, they are the people who need to have this understanding to be on their A game, to be able to authentically impact the world. It starts with ourselves.
I remember I had a client once who was the CEO of a company, and he said to me, you know what, I go away for retreats so I can, reset. I'm away for 2 weeks and I feel great. I do all of what I'm told to do, and I eat clean food, and I do yoga, and I walk, and I do all the things that I have that's part of the program, and I feel fabulous. And then I come home, I open my front door, boom, it hits me, and I'm back to where I was. And I said, well, I think then we need to show you how to bring what you're doing there so that you can incorporate it into your day-to-day life.
And I think that is the most part. So a lot of people forget the integration part, whereas 50% of my focus is on the integration. What happens at retreats that I host is only 50% of the game.
Yes.
What are you doing with that once you go back? That is my main focus. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's really important. Yes, so they can manage this while they're doing that.
Exactly right.
Because I'm doing that.
Yeah. And people think yoga is like for all those yogis and sages who are top of the Himalayas or some mountain where they're sitting in the meditation pose. But you could be doing yoga sitting in the office, like a CEO could be doing. He could have that same state of mind. And, there's no difference between the two. Because if you have someone who's meditating on top of the mountain, but then a little fly buzzes past and their attention is gone, they're not doing yoga.
That's interesting. If I have to tell you that I used to think the same, I was that person once. I can't sit there and do that for that long. I'm just not that. That's not me. I can't do yoga. And so we have to, and I got over that, of course, but we have to open our mind, don't we, to really learn about, what it all really means, because there's so much meaning to what it is. So tell me then, let's just talk quickly about, how does menopause, because menopause is a big subject out there in the marketplace now. It's openly talked about. Organizations are putting programs in place to help support their 40, 50 plus women that are experiencing the pains and the pressures of this aging process they call menopause for women. So how does yoga therapy fit into, if you had a client coming to you that was this woman, how would your yoga therapy help her?
Beautiful question. And again, going back to the 7 bodies, Susan, that's the simple answer. Because, people say, I'm going through menopause. It's not just the physical body. You're going through things that are changing in your body that's going to affect your mind. And, with all these hot flashes that are coming, you can actually use the power of your breath to reduce your body temperature. So, there's special breathing techniques, for example, the Sheetli pranayam, when done correctly. Like, even if I'm stuck at the gym and I've forgotten my bottle of water, I just do the pranayam, the breathing technique. And it's like I've just quenched my thirst. I've cooled my body down. So, all these little techniques are for treating symptoms. But if you're someone who has a solid yoga practice, even before menopause hits around, before you're 45, and that's just a lifestyle, people breeze through this thing called menopause and they don't have any negative connotations. And I
Yes.
have to tell you that, Susan, when you first asked me to be interviewed on the podcast about menopause, I was actually had a bit of resistance building. I'm like, damn, I don't have any like super great success story about clients that I've helped through menopause. But then you know what? Success leaves clues, because I've realized that all of my clients, they're all long-term, because I don't do casual classes. And because they've incorporated this lifestyle, every single person that I've known that does yoga as a lifestyle or even as sessions, as classes, they have not had to face these symptoms. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, there you go. There's gold.
Yeah, you know what? I'm so glad you said that, because that's part of my messaging. That's part of my messaging, and targeting the younger woman, to get the younger woman understanding what you just said so they can breeze through it. You know what? There's such a sliding scale, but the woman that has had a healthier lifestyle mentally and physically pre-45, say, really does have a healthier journey through that, because menopause is simply one day. It's just one day. There's a 12-month build up, and then menopause is one day. Aging is forever. And I think the lessons that we have to impart on these women is that it's a time to stop and connect with self. And I think that's what yoga will do. Really get in tune with who you are in all those bodies, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, so that you know how to manage this forever.
Exactly right. That is the process, the system.
Yes, and that's why that's one reason why I realized that you hadn't actually lived through menopause, but then you may not. It's such an interesting journey with women, but we do have to help more women understand that this is this. What did I hear the other day? Something. What was it said? Somebody said, it's a pity committee. It's women just getting together and like, yeah, and then getting all emotional. And of course, the more they feed that negative emotion, the worse they feel. On a mission to sort of change the narrative around menopause.
Yeah, because where the focus goes, the energy flows, and you want to
That's
get
it.
out of that pity party energy.
That's it. That's it. That's what it is. What would be three things that you would recommend for our listeners here that are just going, oh my gosh, how can they get started really connecting with themselves? What would three things that an individual could do today to start to connect with that yoga in them?
Number one would be intention setting.
Okay.
So, in the yoga world, we have something that's called as a sankalpa, or an intention that you place in your heart. Because yoga is something that's not just practiced on the mat. You're supposed to take yoga off the mat and live it as well. So, every time I roll out my yoga mat, even today, it is a sacred practice for me. And as soon as I step on the mat, I set an intention. I place a thought in my heart. So we're dropping from the mind into our heart.
Okay.
And I'm setting an intention for today's yoga practice. So today, I just want to be on my A game. Or today, just for today, I'm not going to be angry, no matter what life throws my way. Or just for today, I set the intention that I'm not going to feel any stomach cramps when I get my periods or when I don't get my periods. We're going through that perimenopause. Whatever it may be, every time I step on the mat, if you're doing yoga properly, you set an intention.
Okay. Yep.
So, intention is something, it takes 2 seconds. Even when you wake up in the morning, I have a glass of water, and I actually put good intentions into the water. And, there's actually a science has proved that we can measure the frequency of water. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yes, yes, I
Where
have
I
to.
catch,
Yeah.
it's a tap of water, and you see it's got, like, let's say just for measuring sake, 40% is the frequency. And then I'm sitting there putting my good intentions, my good thoughts, just looking at that glass of water, sending it love straight from my heart. Measure it 2 seconds later, it's gone up to 80. I've seen this time and time again. So intention.
Yeah, send an intention.
Yeah. And it could be as simple as just thinking that thought in your head. Or if you've got a journal, write it down, what your intention is for the day. Just feeling that gratitude in your heart for what you already have and what you'd like more of, because that's how you attract it.
That is really powerful. And forgiveness.
100%.
I call them the power twins. I call them the power twins. Forgiveness and gratefulness are the power twins.
Yes, they sure are. And we even have a day set out for forgiveness where in my culture, we ask for forgiveness to people, whether you've intentionally or even unintentionally harmed them in any way. It's just a thought, it's just an intention, but we put it out there and we have a day dedicated for it.
A whole day, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I ask for forgiveness most days because I know I'm going to muck up somewhere, so I ask for forgiveness before I do it.
There you go. And anything, the more consistent you are, the more powerful it's going to be. But the putting out the day is just like, Mother's Day for people who are not very consciously doing things to
Yes,
show their love. You need to actually have a day for those
yes,
people to
yes.
do something.
Yes, no, but it's bringing the awareness, isn't it? It's just bringing the awareness to the front of mind, so it becomes a way of life and not just a day.
Yes.
That's the secret. We want all of these beautiful strategies to help to be a part of how people live their life, because I think if we could help more people understand really just how easy it is, I think there'd be less mental illness and less suicides. I think there'd be more people living with hope and seeing more possibility rather than seeing pain and destruction.
Totally, totally. There's no doubt about that in my head or mind or heart.
Yeah, no, there's not of mine either. And I went to an art gallery with a friend last weekend, and the very first painting that attracted me when we walked in the door was just a very small piece of art, and it was it was the picture of a baby dolphin with this big happy face. It was quite animated, but the eyes and the colors and the smile, and you couldn't help but smile when you looked at this painting. It just straight away brought joy. And I thought to myself, if people understood just the power in that they wake up in the morning and straight away they look at something that immediately makes them smile.
Yeah.
Because
that is so powerful. And, that's exactly going back to the yoga glow, because, when I'm looking at the mirror and when I'm at the gym and I'm lifting heavy, I've got this, the ugly face. And then every time, like if I'm in the same gym environment doing yoga and I've just finished my session and I open my eyes and I've got this beautiful, gentle smile on my face. There you go. It's the emotions that you're feeling inside.
That's called balance. And, this is, Praveena has piqued your interest in wanting to know more. You're that person that has got a winning mindset, but you're just stuck in creating that balance inside and outside. Then give Praveena a call, because I think as you can see her passion and her care for what your problem is. Thank you so much for joining us. It's just been an absolute pleasure. It's been so much fun. You've got the most beautiful energy, and I think that it's your lose the fingers, get rid of the finger crossing. Just know that you're going to get out there and kick ass on what you're doing, because it is so needed and you are just doing it so beautifully. So thank you so much. We will be back again. Let's have another conversation another day. Wherever you are in the world, just remember that you are amazing. You deserve to live your healthy, wealthy, rich life. So go out and just take one thing, what Praveena said. Just take one thing, apply it today, and go and conquer your day. We'll be back next time with another amazing human being.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Susan.